The night Ethan Cole walked through those iron gates, he had no idea the woman waiting inside would destroy everything he thought he knew about survival. She stood in a mansion worth more than his entire neighborhood combined, drowning in wealth but suffocating from loneliness. What started as a simple repair job became something neither of them saw coming, a collision between two broken worlds that would either heal them both or tear everything apart. If you want to see how a single father with calloused hands and a billionaire hiding behind glass walls found something money could never buy, stay until the end. And don't forget to like this video and comment with the city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The storm hit Seattle harder than anyone expected. Ethan Cole stood in his kitchen at 11:30 on a Thursday night, staring at the flickering overhead light while rain hammered the windows like fists. His daughter Maya sat at the table behind him, half asleep over her math homework, pencil dangling from her fingers. She was 8 years old and stubborn as hell, just like her mother had been. "Dad, the lights are doing that thing again." "I know, sweetheart." "Are we gonna lose power?" "Wait, maybe." Ethan turned from the sink, drying his hands on a dish rag that had seen better days. "If we do, we've got candles and flashlights. We'll be fine." Maya wrinkled her nose. "I don't like candles. They smell weird. They smell like wax." "That's what I said. Weird." Ethan smiled despite himself. She'd been doing that lately, pushing back on everything, testing boundaries, trying to figure out where she fit in a world that had taken her mother 3 years ago. He didn't blame her. He was still trying to figure that out himself. The lights flickered again, then died completely. Maya gasped. "Dad!" "It's okay. Stay put." Ethan moved carefully through the dark, his hand finding the drawer near the stove where they kept the flashlights. He clicked one on, and the narrow beam cut through the shadows. "See? We're good. Can I have one?" "Yeah, here." He handed her the second flashlight, and she aimed it at the ceiling like a spotlight. And she, "Finish your homework. I'm going to check the breaker." "In the dark? I've done it before." He had. More times than he could count. The house was old, older than Maya, older than his marriage. The wiring was garbage, the plumbing worse. But it was theirs, paid off with money from his wife's life insurance, and Ethan would be damned if he let it fall apart on his watch. The breaker box was in the basement, which smelled like mildew and old concrete. Ethan made his way down the narrow stairs, sweeping the flashlight beam across the walls. Everything looked fine. He popped open the metal panel, checked the switches. Nothing tripped, which meant the problem wasn't in the house. It was the whole damn grid. Back upstairs, Maya had abandoned her homework and was sitting cross-legged on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, shining her flashlight at the rain-streaked windows. "It's the whole neighborhood," Ethan said. "Power company's probably scrambling. Might be a few hours." "Can we play a game?" "What kind of game?" "I don't know, something fun." Ethan sat down beside her, and she immediately leaned into his side, small and warm. He put an arm around her shoulders. "How about we just sit here for a minute? Listen to the rain." "That's boring." "Sometimes boring is good." She didn't argue. They sat in silence, the storm loud and relentless outside, and Ethan felt the weight of the day settle over him like a blanket. He'd worked 12 hours, fixed a busted water heater, replaced a stretch of rotted decking, fielded calls from clients who didn't want to pay his rates. His body ached. His bank account was thinner than it should have been. And Maya needed new shoes, new clothes, probably a dozen other things he couldn't afford yet. But she was here, safe, fed, loved. That was enough. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "Do you think Mom's watching us right now?" Ethan's chest tightened. "I think so." "Even in the dark?" "Especially in the dark." Maya nodded, satisfied, and closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing evened out, and Ethan realized she'd fallen asleep. He shifted carefully, trying not to wake her, and pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. That's when his phone buzzed. He frowned, pulled it from his pocket. Unknown number. Normally he wouldn't answer, but work was work, and he couldn't afford to miss a job. "Hello? Is this Ethan Cole?" A woman's voice, clipped, professional. "Yeah, who's this?" "My name is Andrea Frost. I work for Vanessa Hale." Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" "Vanessa Hale. She owns the estate on Ridgewood Heights. I'm calling because we're experiencing a power outage. and your company was recommended by a mutual contact. My company? Ethan almost laughed. Lady, I run a one-man repair service out of my truck. I don't think I'm who you're looking for. You do residential electrical work, correct? Yeah, but then you're exactly who I'm looking for. Ms. Hale is willing to pay double your normal rate for an emergency call. The estate's backup generators failed, and the main system won't restart. We need someone here tonight. Ethan hesitated. Ridgewood Heights. He knew the place. Everyone in Seattle knew the place. The mansion up on the hill, sprawling and isolated, surrounded by iron gates and security cameras. It had been empty for years, some kind of family estate tied up in legal hell. He'd heard rumors recently that someone bought it, but he hadn't paid attention. Double rate? He said slowly. Correct. Plus a bonus if the issue is resolved before morning. Ethan looked down at Maya, asleep on his shoulder. He thought about the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter. He thought about the new shoes she needed, the school trip coming up, the slow bleed of his savings account. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said. The gates were bigger than he expected. Ethan sat in his truck, engine idling, staring up at the iron bars that stretched 15 feet high. Beyond them, the driveway curved into darkness, lined with trees that swayed violently in the wind. No lights anywhere, just black. He rolled down the window and leaned out, pressing the call button on the intercom panel. A crackle of static. Then, name? Ethan Cole. I'm here to fix the power. A pause. Then the gates groaned open, slow and heavy. Ethan drove through, his headlights cutting narrow paths through the rain. The driveway was longer than it looked, winding uphill through dense trees, and when the mansion finally came into view, he stopped the truck and just stared. It was massive. 3 stories of stone and glass, Gothic and modern at the same time, with tall windows that reflected nothing but storm clouds. It looked like something out of a movie, the kind of place where people got murdered in the third act. He parked near the front steps and killed the engine, grabbed his toolbox from the back. The rain soaked him instantly, cold and mean, and he jogged up the stone steps to the double doors. Before he could knock, one of them opened. A woman stood there, mid-40s, sharp suit, expression like she'd been carved from ice. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. Yeah, no problem. I'm Andrea Frost. Follow me. She turned without waiting for a response, and Ethan stepped inside, dripping water onto marble floors. The entry hall was enormous, lined with art he didn't recognize and furniture that probably cost more than his truck. Everything was dark except for the narrow beam of Andrea's flashlight. The main electrical panel is in the basement, she said, walking briskly. The backup generators are housed in a separate building behind the property. Both systems failed simultaneously, which suggests either a surge or a structural issue with the wiring. You lose power before the grid went down? No, it happened at the same time. Then it's probably the grid, but I'll check everything. Andrea led him through a series of hallways that all looked the same. High ceilings, expensive rugs, the faint smell of old wood, and something floral. They descended a staircase into a basement that felt more like a bunker, all concrete and steel. The electrical panel was a beast, commercial grade, way beyond what Ethan usually dealt with, but the fundamentals were the same. He set down his toolbox and got to work, testing circuits, checking connections. How long have you worked for Ms. Hale? He asked, not looking up. 3 years? She always live here? No, this estate belonged to her father. She recently decided to restore it. Restore it, huh? Ethan glanced around the spotless basement. Looks pretty restored to me. The structure is sound. The wiring is not. He nodded. That tracked. Old mansions like this were a nightmare. Layers of outdated systems patched together over decades. I'll do what I can tonight, but if this place needs a full rewire, that's a weeks-long job. Understood. Andrea left him alone after that, and Ethan worked in silence, the storm muffled but still audible through the walls. He found the problem after 30 minutes. A blown transformer in the main panel, probably fried by a surge. He didn't have a replacement on hand, but he could reroute power through a secondary line and get partial electricity running. He was halfway through the repair when he heard footsteps. Not Andrea's. These were lighter, slower. Ethan straightened, flashlight in hand, and turned toward the stairs. A woman stood there. She was tall, maybe 5'9", with dark hair pulled back in a loose knot. She wore black pants and a gray sweater, nothing fancy, but something about the way she carried herself made the air feel heavier. Her face was pale, sharp-featured, and her eyes, dark, unreadable, locked onto him like he was a problem she hadn't anticipated. "You're the repair guy," she said. Not a question. A statement. "Yeah," Ethan said. Ethan Cole. Vanessa Hale. She didn't offer her hand, didn't smile, just stood there, watching him. "I didn't expect you to come down here," Ethan said. "It's my house." "But..." "Right. Well, I'm almost done. You'll have partial power in about 10 minutes. Partial. Yeah. Full restoration's gonna take a few days, maybe more. Your wiring's a mess." Vanessa's expression didn't change. "How much?" "For tonight, what your assistant said, double rate plus the bonus." "And for the full job?" Ethan hesitated. He hadn't planned on pitching her, hadn't planned on anything beyond tonight. But the way she was looking at him, not like a billionaire sizing up a contractor, but like someone weighing a decision she didn't want to make, made him pause. "Depends on how deep the problem goes," he said carefully. "Could be 10 grand, could be 50. I'd need to do a full inspection." "Do it." "What?" "The inspection. Tomorrow. I'll pay you for your time." "Boy." Ethan stared at her. "You don't even know me." "Andrea vetted you. That's enough." "Lady, I fix broken sinks and bad wiring. I don't do estates." "Then this will be a learning experience." But Vanessa turned, heading back toward the stairs. "Finish tonight's work. Andrea will handle payment. Be back tomorrow at 9. She disappeared before he could argue. Ethan stood there in the dark, toolbox at his feet, and realized he had no idea what the hell just happened. Sits. He got home a little after 2 in the morning. Maya was still asleep on the couch, exactly where he'd left her. The power was back on in the neighborhood. The grid must have stabilized, and the house felt warm and normal again. Ethan carried his daughter upstairs, tucked her into bed, and stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her breathe. She looked so small, so fragile. He thought about the mansion, about Vanessa Hale, standing in that basement like a ghost haunting her own house. About the money she was offering, money that could change everything. But something about it felt wrong. Off. He didn't trust people with that much money, didn't trust the way they looked at guys like him, like he was a problem to be solved or a tool to be used. And Vanessa Hale had looked at him like both. Still, 50 grand could cover Maya's school for years, could fix the truck, could buy them breathing room. Ethan rubbed his face, exhausted, and went downstairs to check his phone. There was a text from an unknown number. "Payment transferred. See you at 9. Andrea. He checked his bank account. $4,000 for 3 hours of work. Ethan sat down hard on the couch, staring at the number on the screen. He was going back tomorrow. He didn't have a choice. Maya was unimpressed. "A mansion?" she said the next morning, shoveling cereal into her mouth. "Like with a pool?" "I didn't see a pool." "Then it's not a real mansion." Ethan smiled despite himself. "I'll ask." "Can I come?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you have school." "School's boring." "Too bad." She scowled but didn't push it. Ethan finished his coffee, kissed the top of her head, and headed out. The drive to Ridgewood Heights felt different in daylight, less ominous. The gates opened automatically this time, and he followed the driveway up through the trees until the mansion came into view. It looked even bigger in the sun. Andrea was waiting for him at the front steps, tablet in hand. "Mr. Cole, right on time." "Yeah, where do you want me to start?" "Ms. Hale will explain." Chet. She let him inside again, but this time they didn't go to the basement. Instead, they climbed 2 flights of stairs to a wide hallway lined with closed doors. Andrea stopped at the last one, knocked twice. "Come in," Vanessa's voice said. Andrea opened the door, gestured for Ethan to enter, and left without a word. The room was an office. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a massive desk, shelves lined with books and files. Vanessa stood near the window, looking out at the grounds, her back to him. Close the door, she said. Ethan did. You want the truth? Vanessa turned to face him. This house is falling apart. Not structurally, emotionally. My father bought it 30 years ago and let it rot. I thought I could fix it, turn it into something that mattered. But every time I walk through these halls, all I feel is, she stopped, trapped. Ethan didn't know what to say. I need someone who won't treat this place like a museum, Vanessa continued. Someone who'll tear out the broken pieces and build something real. Andrea says you're good at that. I fix things, Ethan said slowly. That's what I do. Then fix this. She handed him a folder. Inside were blueprints, inspection reports, a proposed budget that made his stomach drop. You're serious, he said, completely. Ethan looked at her, really looked, and for the first time he saw past the sharp edges and the cold expression. He saw someone who was drowning. All right, he said, let's get to work. The mansion swallowed 3 weeks of Ethan's life before he realized it was happening. He started showing up at 7 in the morning, toolbox and work boots, ready to pull apart electrical panels and trace wiring through walls that hadn't been touched in decades. The first day he'd planned to work alone. By the second day, Vanessa was standing in whatever room he was working in, asking questions he didn't expect. Why are you rerouting through the east wing? Bossy, because the conduit in the main hall is corroded. You run power through that, you're asking for a fire. How long will it take? Couple days, maybe 3. She nodded, arms crossed, watching him work like she was trying to memorize the process. It should have been annoying. Instead, it was just strange. By the end of the first week, Ethan had a rhythm. He'd drop Maya off at school, drive up to Ridgewood Heights, and lose himself in the guts of the house. The wiring was worse than he'd thought. A patchwork of systems installed across 4 different decades, none of them talking to each other properly. He pulled out boxes of obsolete breakers, replaced burnt-out transformers, rewired entire sections from scratch. It was hard work, the kind that left his shoulders aching and his hands cramped. But it felt good, concrete, like he was building something that mattered. Vanessa was always nearby, not hovering, just present. She'd sit in the corner of whatever room he was working in, laptop open, typing emails or taking calls in a voice that could cut glass. Ethan learned to tune her out, learned that when she went quiet for too long, it meant something had gone wrong with her company, and the next phone call would be brutal. He didn't ask. Wasn't his business. But sometimes, late in the afternoon when the light slanted through the tall windows and the house felt less like a mausoleum, she'd close the laptop and just talk. My father hated this place, she said one day, out of nowhere. Ethan was halfway inside a wall cavity, fishing for a junction box. Then why'd he buy it? Because it was supposed to be an investment. Flip it, sell it, make a profit. But he got sick before he could finish the renovations. Cancer. It took 2 years. She paused. He died in the master bedroom upstairs. Ethan stopped working, pulled himself out of the wall, and looked at her. Vanessa was staring out the window, expression unreadable. I didn't come to the funeral, she said. I was in Tokyo, closing a deal. Told myself I'd visit his grave later. Never did. Why not? Because I was angry. She turned to face him. He spent my entire childhood building his company, ignoring everything else. Then he bought this house and expected me to care about it, to fix it for him, like that would make up for 20 years of nothing. Ethan didn't know what to say. He wiped his hands on his jeans, stood up. You don't owe him anything. I know that. Do you? Vanessa's jaw tightened. I'm here, aren't I? Yeah, you are. They didn't talk for the rest of the day. But the next morning, when Ethan arrived, there was coffee waiting for him in the kitchen. Not the cheap stuff he usually grabbed at the gas station. The good kind. French press, cream on the side. Andrea was standing by the counter, tablet in hand, looking faintly annoyed. Ms. Hale left that for you, she said. Ethan blinked. Why? I don't ask questions I don't want answered. He poured a cup, took a sip. It was perfect. Maya found out about the mansion on day 10. Ethan had been careful not to mention it, told her he was working on a big job, left it vague. But Maya was 8 years old and sharper than most adults he knew. She'd noticed the extra money, the late nights, the way he came home covered in dust and smelling like old wood. "You're working for a rich person," she said one night at dinner. Ethan looked up from his plate. "What makes you say that?" "Because you're being weird. You only get weird when there's money involved." "I'm not being weird." "Dad, you bought name-brand cereal." He couldn't argue with that. "It's a restoration job," he said carefully. "Old house up on the hill. Needs a lot of work." "Is it haunted?" "No." "Are you sure? Because big old houses are always haunted." "It's not haunted." Maya narrowed her eyes. "Can I see it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because it's a work site, not safe for kids." "I'm not a kid. I'm 8. "Exactly." She scowled, stabbed at her mashed potatoes. "You never let me do anything fun." Ethan sighed. He knew that tone, knew the fight that was coming. But before he could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Bring your daughter tomorrow. Andrea mentioned she's been asking questions. Might as well let her see the place." Ethan stared at the screen. "Who's that?" Maya asked. "Nobody." "You're lying." She was right. He was. Maya would not stop talking the entire drive up to Ridgewood Heights. "Is it bigger than the Johnsons' house? Because their house is huge. They have like 6 bathrooms. Do rich people really need 6 bathrooms? I don't get it. How big is this place? Does it have a library? I bet it has a library. Rich people always have libraries and movies. Can I see the library?" "I don't know if there's a library," Ethan said. "Then what have you been doing there for 2 weeks?" "Working." "On what?" "Electrical systems." "That's boring." "Yeah, it is." The gates opened and Maya's eyes went wide. "Okay," she said quietly. "This is actually cool." Ethan smiled despite himself. When they pulled up to the mansion, Andrea was waiting on the steps. Same sharp suit, same unreadable expression. But when she saw Maya climb out of the truck, something in her face softened. "You must be Maya." Maya nodded, suddenly shy. "Miss Hale is expecting you. Follow me." They walked through the entry hall, and Ethan watched his daughter's face light up. She stared at the high ceilings, the chandeliers, the paintings on the walls. She didn't say anything, but he could see her taking it all in, storing every detail. Andrea led them to a sitting room Ethan had never been in before. It was smaller than the others, more comfortable. A fire was going in the fireplace, and Vanessa sat in a leather chair near the window, reading something on her phone. She looked up when they entered. "You're early," she said. "Traffic was light," Ethan replied. Vanessa's gaze shifted to Maya. "You're the daughter." "I'm Maya." "Vanessa." Maya stared at her. "You're really pretty." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Maya, it's fine." Vanessa stood, and for the first time since Ethan met her, she almost smiled. "Thank you. You're very direct." "My dad says I don't have a filters." "Filters are overrated." Vanessa gestured to the couch. "Sit. I'll have Andrea bring tea." "I don't like tea." "Hot chocolate?" Maya's face lit up. "Yes, please." Ethan watched, bewildered, as Vanessa picked up her phone and sent a quick text. Within minutes, Andrea appeared with a tray. Hot chocolate for Maya, coffee for Ethan, nothing for Vanessa. "Your father tells me you've been curious about this house," Vanessa said, sitting back down. Maya nodded, cradling the mug in both hands. "It's really big." "It is. Do you live here all by yourself?" "Most of the time." "Doesn't that get lonely?" The room went very quiet. Ethan cleared his throat. "Maya, that's not—" "Yes," Vanessa said, cutting him off. "It does." Maya frowned. "Then why don't you get a dog?" "A dog?" "Yeah, dogs are good for lonely people." "That's what my teacher says." Vanessa looked at Ethan. He shrugged. "I've never had a dog," Vanessa said slowly. "Then you should get one. They're the best." Maya took a sip of hot chocolate, then added, "My dad won't let me get one because he says we can't afford it. But you're rich, so you can totally afford it." Ethan closed his eyes. "Maya." "What?" "It's true." Vanessa didn't respond right away. She just looked at Maya, and something in her expression shifted, softened, like she was seeing something she hadn't expected to find. Maybe I will, she said quietly. Done. After that, Maya came to the mansion every Saturday. Ethan didn't plan it, didn't ask for it. But Vanessa kept texting him on Friday nights, asking if Maya wanted to visit, and Maya kept saying yes before he could think of a reason to say no. It became a routine. Ethan would work on the wiring, and Maya would wander the house with Andrea, asking 1,000 questions and somehow charming the ice-cold assistant into actually answering them. By the third Saturday, Andrea was teaching Maya how to play chess in the library. There was a library. Of course there was. Vanessa watched from a distance at first. But slowly, she started joining them. She'd sit with Maya in the library, helping her set up the board, explaining strategies in a way that didn't feel condescending. And Maya, who usually had the attention span of a goldfish, actually listened. She's good with her, Andrea said one afternoon. Ethan was replacing a light fixture in the hallway. Andrea had appeared out of nowhere, as usual. Yeah, Ethan said. I noticed. Whoa? Ms. Hale doesn't usually engage with people, especially children. Why not? Andrea hesitated. She doesn't trust easily, and children ask questions she's not equipped to answer. Like what? Like why she works 16-hour days and still comes home to an empty house. Ethan stopped working, looked at Andrea. That's not my business. No, but it's affecting her. Andrea adjusted her tablet, expression carefully neutral. She's been different since you started working here, less isolated. I don't know if that's because of you or your daughter, but either way, I'm not complaining. She walked away before he could respond. Eek. The first crack in Vanessa's armor came on a Tuesday. Ethan was working late, trying to finish a section of rewiring before the inspectors showed up the next day. It was almost 9, and the house was quiet. He assumed Vanessa had left for the night, gone back to her downtown penthouse, or wherever billionaires went when they weren't haunting old mansions. But when he walked into the kitchen to grab water, she was there, sitting at the counter, a bottle of wine open in front of her, staring at nothing. You're still here, Ethan said. Vanessa didn't look up. So are you. I'm finishing the 3rd floor circuit at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, problem? She shook her head slowly, poured herself another glass. Do you ever stop working? Do you? That got a reaction. A faint, bitter smile. Touché. Ethan leaned against the counter. You okay? Define okay. Hey, not drinking alone in an empty mansion. Vanessa finally looked at him. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and he realized she'd been crying. Not a lot, just enough to crack the mask she wore so carefully. My board tried to force me out today, she said. Ethan blinked. What? They called an emergency meeting, said I was too distracted, that my focus was compromised, that I was making decisions based on emotion instead of logic. She took a long drink. They're not wrong. About what? I killed a merger last week, $20 billion. Would have made the company twice its current size. But the acquiring firm wanted to gut our R&D division, lay off 3,000 people, and strip the patents. She set the glass down hard. I said no. Sounds like the right call. The board doesn't think so. They think I'm being sentimental. Weak? You're not weak. Vanessa laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you spent 3 hours last Saturday teaching my daughter how to play chess. I know you've been paying me double what this job's worth because you know I need it. I know you're trying to fix a house you hate because some part of you thinks it'll fix whatever's broken inside you. Ethan paused. That's not weakness. That's just being human. She stared at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Vanessa stood, walked around the counter, and stopped directly in front of him. Close enough that he could smell her perfume, something expensive and faintly floral. You're dangerously perceptive, she said quietly. Yeah, I get that a lot. Do you? Not really. She almost smiled. Your daughter asked me today if I was sad. What'd you say? I said sometimes. She asked why. I didn't know how to answer. Ethan's chest tightened. What would you have said? If you did know. Vanessa looked away. That I spent 20 years building something I thought mattered, and now I'm not sure it does. That I traded everything, relationships, happiness, peace, for a company that's trying to erase me. And the worst part is, I don't know if I'd do it differently if I had the chance. You would, Ethan said. How do you know? Because you're here, in this house, with me and Maya. You didn't have to be, but you are. It's like Vanessa met his eyes again, and something passed between them. Something neither of them had words for. I should go, what? She said. Yeah, probably. But she didn't move. Neither did he. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous, and Ethan felt the pull of it, the gravity of standing too close to someone who was just as lost as he was. Then Vanessa stepped back. Finish your work. I'll see you tomorrow. She left the kitchen without looking back. Ethan stood there alone, heart pounding, and realized he was in serious trouble. The trouble got worse. Over the next 2 weeks, the line between professional and personal blurred so completely that Ethan stopped trying to find it. He'd finish a section of rewiring, and Vanessa would be waiting with coffee. He'd mentioned Maya needed help with a school project, and Vanessa would offer the library and 3 hours of her time. He'd catch her staring at him across a room, and when their eyes met, neither of them would look away fast enough. It was subtle, careful, but it was there, and it scared the hell out of him, because Ethan knew what happened to guys like him who got involved with women like her. He'd seen it in movies, read it in books. The power imbalance was too big. The world's too different. It always ended badly. But then Maya would laugh at something Vanessa said, and Vanessa would light up in a way that made her look 10 years younger, and Ethan would forget why he was supposed to keep his distance. It all came to a head on a Sunday. Maya had begged to spend the day at the mansion, and Ethan had caved. He'd brought his toolbox, planning to finish the last of the rewiring, but Vanessa had other ideas. Take the day off, she said when he arrived. I'm almost done. Take the day off. Maya was already halfway across the entry hall, heading for the library. Ethan sighed. What am I supposed to do? There's a garden in the back. It's overgrown, but it's still standing. Maya mentioned she'd never seen a real garden before. She hasn't. Then show her. Ethan followed Vanessa through the house and out a set of French doors that led to the back grounds. The garden was massive, easily an acre, surrounded by high stone walls and filled with tangled vines, wildflowers, and trees that looked like they hadn't been pruned in years. Maya gasped. This is amazing. It used to be my mother's, Vanessa said quietly. She died when I was 12. My father let it go after that. Can we fix it? Maya asked. Vanessa looked at Ethan. Can we? It'd take time and help. But yeah, we could. Then let's do it. They spent the next 4 hours clearing weeds, trimming branches, pulling up dead plants. It was dirty, exhausting work, and Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this good. Maya ran around like a wild thing, collecting flowers and bugs and rocks she deemed important. Vanessa rolled up her sleeves and worked alongside them, dirt under her nails, hair falling loose from its knot. She looked real, human. At one point, Maya ran up to her with a fistful of dandelions. These are for you. Vanessa took them, and her eyes went soft. Thank you. You're supposed to make a wish. I am? Yeah, you blow on them, and whatever you wish for comes true. Vanessa held the dandelions up, and for a moment, Ethan thought she might actually do it. But then she looked at him, and something unspoken passed between them. I'll save it, she said, for later. Maya shrugged. Okay, but don't wait too long. Wishes expire. That night, after Ethan dropped Maya off at home and came back to grab his toolbox, Vanessa was waiting in the garden. The sun had set, and the space was lit by string lights someone, probably Andrea, had hung while they weren't looking. Vanessa sat on a stone bench, still holding the dandelions. You came back, she said. Forgot my tools. That's a terrible lie. Ethan smiled despite himself. Yeah, it is. He sat down beside her close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Maya's a good kid, Vanessa said. She likes you. I like her too. Vanessa paused. She reminds me of someone I used to be before I forgot how. You didn't forget. You just buried it. Maybe. They sat in silence, the garden quiet around them. Then Vanessa turned to face him. I'm scared, she said. Of what? This. You. The way I feel when you're here. The way I feel when you're not. She looked down at the dandelions. I don't know how to do this, Ethan. I don't know how to let people in. Ethan reached out, gently took the flowers from her hand, and set them on the bench. Then he took her hand in his. You don't have to know, he said. You just have to try. Vanessa's breath hitched. What if I mess it up? Then we'll fix it. That's what I do, remember? She laughed, quiet and shaky, and then she leaned in and kissed him. It wasn't careful. It wasn't planned. It was messy and imperfect and real, and when they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. That was a mistake, Vanessa whispered. Probably. We shouldn't do it again. Probably not. She kissed him again anyway, and this time, Ethan didn't pull away. They kept it quiet for 3 weeks. Ethan would show up in the mornings like always, toolbox in hand, and work on the mansion like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The way Vanessa looked at him when Andrea wasn't watching. The way his hand would brush hers when they passed each other in the hallways. The stolen moments in empty rooms where they'd kiss like teenagers, quick and desperate, before pulling apart and pretending to be professional again. It was reckless, stupid, and Ethan knew it couldn't last. But he didn't want to stop. Maya noticed first, of course. She had a radar for things adults thought they were hiding. You're smiling more, she said one night over dinner. Ethan looked up from his plate. What? You smile more now, like all the time. It's weird. I'm not smiling all the time. You're literally smiling right now, Miss. He wasn't, or at least he hadn't realized he was. He cleared his throat, forced his expression neutral. I'm just in a good mood. Because of the mansion lady? Ethan nearly choked on his water. What? Vanessa. You like her. It's super obvious. Maya? It's okay, Dad. I like her too. She's cool. And she's pretty. And she lets me use her library whenever I want. Maya stabbed at her broccoli. You should ask her out. It's not that simple. Why not? Because she's my boss. Oh, so? Ms. Ramirez married her boss. She told us about it in class. They have 3 kids now. Ethan rubbed his face. That's different. How? Because Vanessa's... He stopped. Because what could he say? That Vanessa was a billionaire and he was a guy who fixed broken wiring? That their worlds didn't overlap? Couldn't overlap, no matter how much he wanted them to? That he was terrified of what would happen when reality caught up? She's complicated, he finished lamely. Maya rolled her eyes. Adults always say that when they're scared. She wasn't wrong. The scandal broke on a Thursday. Ethan had stayed late at the mansion, finishing the last of the electrical work. The inspectors were coming the next day and he wanted everything perfect. Vanessa had been in her office, buried in conference calls, and he hadn't seen her all afternoon. Around 8, he packed up his tools and headed for the door. But when he stepped outside, there was a car parked at the end of the driveway. Not one of Vanessa's. A sedan, dark and nondescript, with someone sitting in the driver's seat. Ethan frowned. Probably just security. Andrea had mentioned tightening protocols after some investor threatened Vanessa last month. He got in his truck and drove through the gates without thinking twice. The next morning, his phone exploded. The first call came at 6:30. Unknown number. Ethan ignored it. Then another. And another. By 7, he had 15 missed calls and a voicemail box that was full. He played the first message. Mr. Cole, this is David Chen from Seattle Tribune. We're running a story about your relationship with Vanessa Hale and would love to get your comment. Please call me back at... Ethan hung up. His stomach dropped. He opened his phone, pulled up Google, and typed Vanessa's name. The first result made his blood run cold. Tech CEO Vanessa Hale entangled in secret romance with employee. There was a photo, grainy, taken from a distance but clear enough. Ethan leaving the mansion late at night, Vanessa standing in the doorway behind him. The angle made it look intimate, like they'd been caught. He scrolled down. More articles, more photos. Some from weeks ago, some from days ago. All of them painting the same picture. Billionaire CEO having an affair with the help. His phone rang again. This time it was Andrea. He answered, "What the hell is happening? Where are you?" Andrea's voice was clipped, professional, but there was an edge to it. "At home. Why?" "Stay there. Don't talk to anyone. Don't answer the door. And for the love of everything, do not make a statement to the press." "Andrea, Ms. Hale is handling it. Just stay put." She hung up before he could argue. Ethan sat down hard on the couch, phone still in his hand, and tried to process what was happening. Someone had been watching them, following them, taking pictures. For weeks, maybe longer. And now the whole city knew. Maya wandered into the living room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Dad? Who keeps calling?" Ethan forced a smile. "Nobody important. Go get dressed. You'll be late for school." "Can I stay home?" "No." "But, Maya, please." She must have heard something in his voice because she didn't argue, just turned and headed back upstairs. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "I'm sorry. I'll fix this." He stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "Are you okay?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. No. By noon, the story had gone national. Ethan watched it unfold from his living room, laptop open, phone silenced. Every major outlet was running some version of the same headline. The photos were everywhere, and the commentary, bitter, vicious, gleeful, painted him as exactly what he'd always feared people would see. A guy using a rich woman for money. The worst part was the comments, gold digger. She's an idiot for falling for this. He probably has 3 other girlfriends on the side. Bet he saw her coming a mile away. Ethan closed the laptop. His hands were shaking. His phone rang. A Seattle number he recognized. His biggest client, a property management company that accounted for nearly 40% of his income. He answered. "Hello?" "Ethan, it's Tom. Listen, I hate to do this, but we're going to have to pause our contract for a bit." Ethan's chest tightened. "Why?" "You know why. This whole thing with Vanessa Hale, it's messy. Our investors are nervous. They don't want to be associated with the drama. Tom, I've worked for you for 5 years. I know, and you're great. But this isn't personal. It's business. Once things settle down, we'll talk. But for now, we need to step back." The line went dead. Ethan sat there staring at nothing and felt the walls closing in. 2 more clients called within the hour. Same story, same excuses. By the end of the day, he'd lost half his contracts, and the press was camped outside his house. He kept Maya home from school the next day. Couldn't risk her walking into a media circus. She sat on the couch, iPad in hand, unusually quiet. "They're saying mean things about you online," she said finally. Ethan looked up from where he'd been pacing the kitchen. "You've been reading the news?" "No. Kids at school were talking about it yesterday, before you picked me up." She set the iPad down. "Is it true? Are you and Vanessa together?" He didn't know how to answer that, because what were they? A secret. A mistake. Something fragile that had just been dragged into the light and torn apart. "It's complicated," he said. "You keep saying that, because it is." Maya frowned. "Do you love her?" The question hit him like a punch. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried to find words that made sense. "I don't know," he said finally. "Then you should figure it out, because she's probably really sad right now." Out of the mouths of 8-year-olds, Ethan tried calling Vanessa that night. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again an hour later. Same thing. He texted Andrea. "Is she okay?" The response came an hour later. "She's in lockdown. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. They're voting on whether to remove her as CEO." Ethan read the message 3 times before the reality of it sank in. They were trying to destroy her, and it was because of him. The board meeting was closed to the public, but the fallout wasn't. Ethan watched the live stream from his couch, Maya asleep beside him, as reporters gathered outside Vanessa's downtown headquarters. The feed showed board members arriving in black cars, stone-faced and silent. No one would comment. No one would confirm anything. But the leaks started within an hour. Anonymous sources claimed the board was split. Half wanted Vanessa out immediately. The other half wanted her to issue a public apology, end the relationship, and commit to stepping back from day-to-day operations. Neither option gave her a way to win. Ethan's phone rang. Andrea again. She needs to see you. What? Ms. Hale, she's asking for you. Can you come to the estate? Now? Yes, now. Ethan looked at Maya, still asleep. He couldn't leave her, not with the press outside. I can't. Maya's here, and bring her. I'll have security escort you both through the back entrance. No cameras. 20 minutes later, Ethan was driving up to Ridgewood Heights with Maya buckled in beside him, half asleep and confused. Where are we going? She mumbled. To see Vanessa. Is she okay? I don't know. Andrea met them at the side entrance, flanked by 2 security guards. She looked exhausted. This way. This. They followed her through the mansion, and Ethan realized how different it felt now. Cold. Empty. Like all the warmth they'd built over the past 2 months had been sucked out. Vanessa was in the library. She stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the dark grounds. She didn't turn when they entered. Miss Hale, Andrea said quietly. They're here. Vanessa finally turned, and Ethan's breath caught. She looked destroyed. Hair pulled back in a severe knot, face pale, eyes red-rimmed. She'd been crying, maybe still was. Maya, Vanessa said, her voice hoarse. I'm glad you're here. Maya ran to her, and Vanessa dropped to her knees, pulling the girl into a hug that looked like it was the only thing holding her together. Are you sad? Maya asked. Yeah, I am. Because of the pictures? Because of a lot of things. Maya pulled back, studying her face. My dad says you're complicated. Vanessa laughed, but it was broken. He's right. I think you're just scared. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Ethan over Maya's shoulder, and he saw everything she couldn't say. Andrea cleared her throat. Maya, why don't we go find some hot chocolate? Give your dad and Ms. Hale a few minutes. Maya looked like she wanted to argue. Juan. Maya looked like but Andrea was already guiding her toward the door. Come on. I think there are cookies, too. When they were alone, the silence stretched unbearable. I'm sorry, Vanessa said finally. For what? For dragging you into this. For being careless. For not protecting you. She wiped at her eyes, angry. I knew this could happen. I knew they'd come after me eventually. But I thought I could control it. I thought... Her voice broke. I'm so stupid. You're not. Ethan, you're losing clients. Your daughter's being harassed at school. The press is calling you a gold digger. And it's all because I couldn't keep my personal life separate from... Stop. Ethan crossed the room, took her face in his hands. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. No, it's theirs, the board, the press. Whoever's been stalking us and selling photos. Not you. Vanessa closed her eyes. The board's giving me an ultimatum. Step down voluntarily, or they force a vote and remove me. Either way, I lose the company. What are you going to do? I don't know. She opened her eyes, and they were full of fear. If I fight them, it'll get worse. More photos, more stories. They'll dig into your life, Maya's life. They'll destroy you to get to me. Let them try. Ethan, I mean it. I don't care what they say about me. I care about you. You shouldn't. I'm not worth it. Yes, you are. Vanessa shook her head, pulled away from him. You don't understand. These people, they're not just investors. They're vultures. And the one leading the charge is Marcus Webb. He's been trying to take control of my company for years. This scandal is exactly what he needed. Then we expose him. With what? He's too smart to leave a trail. Ethan thought about that. About the mansion. About all the time he'd spent pulling it apart, tracing wires through walls, finding things that had been buried for decades. What if the trail's already here? He said slowly. Vanessa frowned. What do you mean? Your father owned this place, and you said he was in business with some of the same people on your board, right? Yes, but so maybe there's something here. Documents, files, something your father left behind that could prove Webb's been dirty all along. Ethan, my father's been dead for 8 years. Anything important would have been found by now. Unless it wasn't meant to be found. Vanessa stared at him. You think my father hid something? I think your father was paranoid and careful, and I think this house is full of secrets. For the first time since the scandal broke, something sparked in Vanessa's eyes. Not hope, but possibility. Where would we even start? She asked. His office, the basement, anywhere he spent time. Ethan paused. When's the board meeting? Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Then we've got tonight. They tore the mansion apart. Vanessa pulled files from her father's office while Ethan checked the walls for hidden compartments. Andrea coordinated the search, methodical and relentless. Even Maya helped, checking bookshelves and desk drawers with the kind of focus only kids could muster. Hours passed. Nothing. By midnight, Ethan was starting to lose hope. They'd searched every obvious place, found nothing but old tax documents and forgotten contracts. This was a stupid idea, Vanessa said, slumped in her father's desk chair. There's nothing here. Ethan didn't answer. He was staring at the office wall, at the built-in bookshelves that stretched floor to ceiling. When did your father renovate this room? He asked. Vanessa looked up. I don't know. 10 years ago? Maybe more. And he did the work himself? He hired contractors. Why? Well, Ethan walked to the shelves, running his hand along the seam where they met the wall. Because this doesn't match the rest of the house. The wiring's newer. The construction's different. So your father didn't just renovate, he rebuilt. Ethan pulled out his flashlight, shone it along the edges. And if I were hiding something, I'd hide it in the walls. He started pulling books off the shelves. Vanessa joined him, and together they cleared an entire section. Behind the books, the wall looked solid. But when Ethan knocked on it, the sound was hollow. There's a space back here, he said. Vanessa's eyes widened. Can you open it? Yeah, but it's going to make a mess. I don't care. Ethan grabbed a pry bar from his toolbox and went to work. The panel came off easier than he expected, revealing a narrow cavity between the wall studs, and inside a metal lockbox. Vanessa pulled it out with shaking hands. No lock, just a latch. She opened it. Inside were files, dozens of them, contracts, emails, financial records, and at the bottom, a handwritten letter. Vanessa unfolded it, read the first line, and went pale. What is it? Ethan asked. She handed it to him without a word. The letter was addressed to Vanessa, dated 3 months before her father's death. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably in trouble. Marcus Webb is not your ally. He never was. I've documented everything, the bribes, the offshore accounts, the hostile takeover he's been planning since before I got sick. He wanted this company, and he was willing to destroy me to get it. Don't let him do the same to you. The evidence is here. Use it. And don't trust anyone on that board. Half of them are on his payroll. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this while I was alive. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but you're stronger than I ever was. Don't let them win. Dad, Ethan looked up. Vanessa was crying again, but this time it was different, not broken, furious. He knew, she whispered. He knew the whole time. And now so do you. Vanessa wiped her eyes. Jaw set. We take this to the board tomorrow, before the vote. They'll try to bury it. Then we go to the press. Vanessa, I'm done hiding. I'm done letting them control the narrative. She looked at him, fierce and unbreakable. They wanted a scandal? I'll give them one they'll never forget. They spent the rest of the night building a case. Vanessa spread the documents across the library floor, while Andrea cataloged everything with the precision of a prosecuting attorney. Ethan sat with Maya curled up asleep in his lap, watching Vanessa work. She moved like someone possessed, flipping through contracts, cross-referencing emails, her eyes sharp and focused. This is insane, Andrea said around 3 a.m, holding up a printed spreadsheet. Webb's been funneling money through shell companies for 6 years. Your father documented every transaction because he knew, Vanessa said without looking up. He knew Webb was going to make a move eventually. Why didn't he expose him while he was alive? Because he was sick, dying, and probably figured it wasn't worth the fight. Vanessa's voice went cold. He left it for me instead. Ethan shifted carefully, trying not to wake Maya. How much are we talking? Embezzlement? Around 40 million? Bribes to board members? Another 15. Offshore accounts tied to fake acquisitions? Andrea looked up, grim. Over $200 million that should have gone to shareholders. Ethan whistled low. That's prison time. If we can prove it, Vanessa said. Your father already did. This is a roadmap. So Vanessa finally stopped moving. She sat back on her heels, staring at the sea of paper around her. Webb's going to fight this. He'll say the documents are fake, that my father was paranoid and fabricated everything. Then we get corroboration, Andrea said. These shell companies have to have paper trails, bank records, wire transfers. If we can get subpoenas, we don't have time for subpoenas. The vote's in 11 hours. So we take what we have and go public before the meeting. Vanessa shook her head. If we leak this to the press, Webb's lawyers will bury us in litigation before we can prove anything. We need to hit him where he can't hide. The shareholders' meeting, Ethan said. Both women looked at him. It's open to investors, right? He continued. Anyone who owns stock can attend. Technically, yes, Vanessa said slowly. But why would... Because if you walk in there with this evidence and present it in front of everyone, board members, shareholders, press, Webb can't spin it. He can't hide. And if the board tries to remove you after that, they'll look complicit. Andrea frowned. That's risky. If the board thinks she's grandstanding, they'll force the vote immediately. Let them, Ethan said. Vanessa's not grandstanding. She's exposing a conspiracy. Why? Vanessa stared at him, and something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe. Or determination. It was hard to tell. If I do this, she said quietly, there's no going back. Webb will come after me with everything he has. The board will fracture. The company might not survive. The company won't survive if Webb takes control, Ethan said. You know that. She did. He could see it in her eyes. All right. Vanessa stood, brushing dust off her pants. Andrea, I need you to compile everything into a presentation. Timelines, transactions, names. Make it airtight, and get our legal team on standby. They're going to tell you not to do this. I don't care, do it anyway. Andrea nodded and pulled out her phone, already making calls. Vanessa turned to Ethan. You should go home, get some sleep. This is going to get ugly, and I don't want you anywhere near it. Too late for that. Ethan, I'm coming to the meeting. You're not a shareholder, so give me shares, 1 share, whatever. I'm not letting you walk into that room alone. Vanessa's expression softened. You don't have to do this. Yeah, I do. She crossed the room and kissed him, soft and desperate and grateful all at once. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything. We will. Ethan wished he had her confidence. By 8 a.m, they had a plan. Andrea had compiled the evidence into a 60-slide presentation that could stand up in court. Vanessa's legal team, 3 exhausted lawyers who looked like they'd been dragged out of bed, had reviewed everything and reluctantly agreed it was solid. Not perfect, but solid. The shareholders' meeting was at 2. Vanessa would present the evidence during open forum before the board could call for a vote. If everything went right, Webb would be exposed. The board would turn on him, and Vanessa would survive. If everything went wrong, she'd lose everything. Ethan drove home around 9 to shower and change. Maya woke up in the truck, groggy and confused. Are we going back to Vanessa's? She asked. Later, we need to get you to school first. But I want to help. You already did, sweetheart. You helped us find the evidence. Maya perked up at that. Really? Really? So Vanessa's going to be okay? Ethan hesitated. He didn't want to lie to her, but he also didn't want to scare her. I hope so, he said. That seemed to be enough. Maya settled back in her seat, content. When they got home, the press was gone. Probably camped outside Vanessa's headquarters now, waiting for the meeting. Ethan got Maya fed, dressed, and off to school with the promise that he'd pick her up early. Then he went back to his house, stood in the shower for 20 minutes, and tried to prepare himself for whatever came next. His phone rang while he was getting dressed. Unknown number again. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Cole? A man's voice, smooth, confident. Yeah, who's this? Marcus Webb. Ethan froze. I apologize for calling directly, Webb continued, but I thought we should talk, man to man. I've got nothing to say to you. I think you do. I understand you've become quite close with Ms. Hale, that you've been spending a significant amount of time at her estate. That's none of your business. Actually, it is. See, I care about Vanessa. I've known her since she was a child, watched her build that company from nothing, and I hate to see her make decisions that could destroy everything she's worked for. Ethan's jaw tightened. Get to the point. The point is, you're a distraction, a liability. And if you care about her at all, you'll step back before you make things worse. You mean before she exposes you? There was a pause, then Webb laughed, low and cold. So she found her father's little insurance policy. I wondered when that would surface. Another pause. Here's the thing, Mr. Cole. Those documents, they're circumstantial at best, defamatory at worst. If Vanessa presents them today, my lawyers will have her buried in lawsuits before the meeting's over. And you? You'll be collateral damage. I'll take my chances. Will you? Because I've done my research on you. Single father, struggling business. You can't afford a legal battle. One lawsuit, and you'll lose your house, your custody of your daughter, everything. Ethan's blood ran cold. You threatening my kid? I'm stating facts. You're in over your head, and if you don't walk away, you're going to drown. Vanessa, too. She's stronger than you think. Maybe, but strength doesn't matter when you're outnumbered. Webb's voice hardened. I'm offering you a way out. Take it. Disappear. I'll make sure the press leaves you alone. I'll even throw in a contract for your business. Enough work to keep you comfortable for years. In exchange for what? Convince Vanessa to step down quietly. No dramatics. No accusations. She walks away with her reputation intact, and everyone wins. Ethan laughed, bitter and harsh. You actually think I'd sell her out? I think you're a pragmatist, and pragmatists know when to fold. Then you don't know me at all. Ethan hung up. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Webb had just confirmed everything. The desperation, the guilt, the willingness to destroy anyone who got in his way. And Ethan was walking straight into his crosshairs. He grabbed his keys and headed for the door. The shareholders' meeting was held in a glass-walled conference room on the 23rd floor of Vanessa's headquarters. By the time Ethan arrived, the lobby was chaos. Press everywhere, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions at anyone who looked important. Andrea was waiting for him near the elevators, phone pressed to her ear. She saw him and gestured sharply. You're late, she said when he reached her. I got held up. By what? Marcus Webb. Andrea's expression went dark. What did he want? To threaten me and bribe me, in that order. Did it work? What do you think? She almost smiled. Come on, Vanessa's upstairs. She's been asking for you. They rode the elevator in silence, surrounded by board members and investors who didn't bother hiding their stares. Ethan kept his head down, hands in his pockets, trying to ignore the weight of their judgment. When the doors opened, Andrea led him down a hallway to a smaller conference room where Vanessa was waiting. She stood by the window, dressed in a black suit that made her look untouchable. But when she turned and saw Ethan, her whole body relaxed. You came, she said. Of course I came. She crossed the room and hugged him, tight and brief, like she was trying to absorb his certainty. Webb called me this morning, Ethan said quietly. Vanessa pulled back. What did he say? That I should convince you to step down, that he'd bury us both if we didn't. He's bluffing. Maybe. But he sounded pretty confident. He always does. Vanessa's jaw set. Did he offer you money? Yeah. And you said no. Obviously. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she kissed him, right there in front of Andrea and the glass walls where anyone could see. When she pulled back, her eyes were fierce. Whatever happens in that room, I need you to know something. You saved me. Not the company. Not my reputation. Me. Ethan's throat tightened. We're not done yet. I know, but just in case, don't. We're going to win this. You don't know that. Yeah, I do. Andrea cleared her throat. We're on in 5. Are you ready? Vanessa straightened her jacket, squared her shoulders. Let's go. The conference room was packed. Shareholders filled the seats, board members lined the front table, and cameras crowded the back wall. The energy was tense, expectant. Everyone knew something was coming. They just didn't know what. Vanessa walked in with Ethan beside her, and the room went silent. Marcus Webb sat at the center of the board table, mid-50s, silver hair, expensive suit. He smiled when he saw her, polite and patronizing. Vanessa, good of you to join us. Marcus. She didn't sit, just stood at the front of the room, hands clasped. Before we begin, I have something to present. I'm sure you do, but we have an agenda. This takes precedence. The chairman, an older man named Richard Klein, frowned. Ms. Hale, we're here to discuss your position as CEO. If you have something relevant, it's relevant. Vanessa nodded to Andrea, who pulled up the presentation on the main screen. Over the past 12 hours, I've uncovered evidence of systemic fraud within this company. Fraud orchestrated by a member of this board. Murmurs rippled through the room. Webb's smile didn't falter. That's a serious accusation, he said calmly. It's a fact. Vanessa turned to the screen as the first slide appeared. For the past 6 years, Marcus Webb has been embezzling funds through shell companies, bribing board members, and planning a hostile takeover of this company. The room exploded. Shareholders started shouting. Board members jumped to their feet. Cameras focused on Webb, who sat perfectly still, expression unreadable. This is absurd, he said. Vanessa, I understand you're under pressure, but fabricating evidence? It's not fabricated, it's documented. By my father. That got his attention. His smile finally cracked. Your father was sick, paranoid. He saw conspiracies everywhere. He saw you. But Vanessa advanced to the next slide. Here's a wire transfer from one of your shell companies to a Cayman Islands account. $42 million, funds that were supposed to go toward R&D. Another slide. Here's an email from you to board member David Cho, promising him a seat on the executive committee if he voted against my last acquisition. Another slide. And here's a contract you signed with a competitor, agreeing to sell them our proprietary technology once you gain control of the company. The room was dead silent now. Webb stood slowly. You have no idea what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm protecting this company from you. You're destroying it. This presentation, these allegations, that they'll tank our stock, cost shareholders billions. Only if they're false. Are they false, Marcus? He didn't answer. Richard Klein leaned forward. Marcus, is any of this true? Of course not. This is a witch hunt. Then you won't mind us bringing in an independent auditor to verify these documents. Webb's expression went cold. I want my lawyer. That's not a denial, Vanessa said. The room erupted again. Shareholders demanding answers. Board members turning on each other. Cameras catching every second. And in the middle of it all, Ethan watched Vanessa stand her ground, unshaken, and realized she'd just set off a bomb that would reshape everything. Webb pushed back from the table and headed for the door. But before he could leave, Richard Klein's voice cut through the chaos. Sit down, Marcus. Webb stopped. We're not done here, Richard continued. If these allegations are true, and they look damn credible, we're looking at criminal charges, SEC investigations, lawsuits from every shareholder in this room. You don't get to walk away. I don't answer to you. You answer to this board. And right now, we're voting to suspend you pending a full investigation. Richard looked around the table. All in favor? Every hand went up, even the ones Webb had supposedly bought. Webb stared at them, and for the first time Ethan saw fear in his eyes. You're making a mistake, he said. No, Vanessa said quietly. You made the mistake 6 years ago, and every day since. Security escorted Webb out of the room. The press followed, shouting questions. And Vanessa stood at the front of the conference room, exhausted and victorious and still terrified. Richard approached her. This changes everything. You understand that? I do. The company's going to take a hit. Stock prices, public trust. It'll be months before we recover. I know. But you did the right thing. He extended his hand. I'm sorry we doubted you. Vanessa shook it, but there was no triumph in her expression, just weariness. As the room cleared out, Ethan walked over to her. You okay? I don't know. She looked at him. I just blew up my entire company. You saved it. Maybe. Or maybe I just delayed the inevitable. Vanessa, I need air. She walked out before he could stop her. Ethan found her on the rooftop terrace 20 minutes later. She was leaning against the railing, staring out at the Seattle skyline. The wind whipped her hair around her face, and she looked small, fragile. Ethan walked up beside her, didn't say anything, just stood there. After a long silence, Vanessa spoke. I spent my whole life building this company, sacrificing everything for it, and in one afternoon, I destroyed it. You didn't destroy it. You cleaned it out. Same thing. No, it's not. She turned to look at him. What if I'm wrong? What if Webb's lawyers find a way to discredit the evidence? What if the board decides I'm more trouble than I'm worth? Then we'll deal with it. We. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. You keep saying that, like you're actually planning to stick around. I am. Why? Because I love you. The words were out before Ethan could stop them. He hadn't planned to say it, hadn't even realized he felt it until the moment it left his mouth. But it was true. Vanessa stared at him, stunned. You don't mean that. Yeah, I do. Ethan, you barely know me. I know you're stubborn and terrified and brilliant. I know you hide behind walls because you think vulnerability is weakness. I know you care about my daughter more than most people care about their own family. I know you're standing on this rooftop second-guessing the bravest thing you've ever done because you're so used to people letting you down that you can't believe someone might actually stay. Vanessa's breath hitched. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm a mess, she whispered. So am I. This won't work. Probably not. Then why Because I don't care. Ethan stepped closer, cupped her face in his hands. I don't care if it's messy. I don't care if it's hard. I care about you, and I'm not going anywhere. Vanessa kissed him, hard and desperate and full of everything she couldn't say. When they finally pulled apart, she was smiling through the tears. I love you too, she said. I think I have for a while. Yeah? Yeah. Ethan laughed, relief flooding through him. Good, because that would have been really awkward otherwise. She laughed too, and for a moment, the weight of the past 2 days lifted. Then her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, read the screen, and her smile faded. What is it? Ethan asked. Andrea. The press is running the story. Every outlet in the country. That's good, right? Maybe. Or maybe it just painted a target on both our backs. Ethan took her hand. Then we face it together. See, Vanessa looked at him, and something in her expression shifted, softened. Together, she repeated. They stood there on the rooftop, hands intertwined, and watched the city below. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the first time in weeks, neither of them felt like they were drowning. The media firestorm lasted exactly 9 days. 9 days of headlines screaming about corporate fraud and billion-dollar conspiracies. 9 days of Marcus Webb's face plastered across every news channel as federal investigators seized his assets and arrested 2 board members who'd been on his payroll. 9 days of Vanessa's legal team working around the clock to keep the company from collapsing under the weight of the scandal. And 9 days of Ethan trying to figure out where he fit in all of it. Because the thing nobody talked about in the aftermath was the quiet. The strange, disorienting calm that settled once the cameras stopped rolling and the reporters moved on to the next story. Vanessa was still CEO. The board had voted unanimously to keep her after Webb's arrest. But the company was wounded. Stock prices had tanked, shareholders were furious, and rebuilding trust would take years. Ethan watched it all from the margins, unsure how to help. He wasn't a lawyer or a businessman or someone who understood corporate strategy. He was a guy who fixed broken things, and Vanessa's world felt too big, too complicated for the tools he had. He said as much one night, 2 weeks after the shareholders' meeting. They were sitting in the mansion's kitchen, the first time they'd been alone together since the chaos started. Maya was asleep upstairs in one of the guest rooms. exhausted from a day spent running through the overgrown garden. Vanessa had made tea, which she wasn't drinking, and Ethan had a beer he'd barely touched. "I don't know what I'm doing here," he said finally. Vanessa looked up. "What do you mean?" "This. Us. Your world." He gestured vaguely at the mansion around them. "I don't fit, Vanessa. I keep trying to pretend I do, but I don't. You think I fit? You built this." "No, my father built this. I just inherited it." She set her mug down. "And for the record, I don't fit either. I never have. That's why I buried myself in work. It was easier than admitting I was lonely." "You're not lonely anymore. Because of you." She reached across the table, took his hand. "You and Maya, you're the only things that feel real right now." Ethan wanted to believe that. But doubt was a persistent bastard. "What happens when the dust settles?" he asked. "When you go back to running the company full-time and I go back to fixing water heaters? What then?" "Then we figure it out." "How?" I don't know." Vanessa's grip tightened. "But I'm not giving up on this. On us. Not unless you want me to." "Yeah. I don't." "Then stop looking for reasons why it won't work and help me find reasons why it will." Ethan looked at her, really looked, and saw the same fear he felt reflected back. She was just as lost as he was, just as uncertain. The only difference was she'd stopped running from it. Maybe it was time he did too. "All right," he said. "So where do we start?" Vanessa smiled, small and tentative. "I have an idea." The idea was the garden. Vanessa wanted to restore it, not just fix it, but transform it into something the community could use. A public space, open to everyone. She'd been thinking about it since the day they'd cleared the weeds with Maya, but the scandal had pushed it to the back burner. "Now feels like the right time," she said. "The company's going to be tied up in audits and restructuring for months. I can't do anything about that, but I can do this." "You want to turn your private estate into a public park," Ethan said slowly. "Part of it, the back acreage, the garden, maybe add a greenhouse, some walking paths, make it accessible." "Why?" "Because I'm tired of this place being a monument to my father's failures. I want it to mean something." She paused. "And because Maya was right, wishes do expire. I've spent too long waiting for the perfect moment to do something good. This is that moment." Ethan couldn't argue with that. They started the next week. Ethan brought in his tools, a few guys he trusted from other jobs, and they went to work. Clearing brush, repairing stone walls, building raised garden beds and planting paths. It was hard labor, the kind that left him sore and exhausted, but it felt purposeful, like he was building something that mattered. Vanessa worked alongside them, not directing, just doing. She hauled wheelbarrows of dirt, planted seedlings, got her hands filthy. Andrea showed up on the third day with a clipboard and a look of resignation, prepared to manage the logistics. Even Maya got involved, organizing seeds by color and insisting they plant sunflowers because they were her favorite. Word spread fast. By the second week, people from the neighborhood started showing up. Volunteers, families, kids who wanted to help. Ethan didn't know most of them, but they knew Vanessa, or at least they knew her story, and for reasons he didn't entirely understand, they wanted to be part of what she was building. "Why are they here?" Ethan asked one afternoon, watching a group of teenagers haul mulch. "Because people like second chances," Vanessa said, "and they like watching someone fight for something bigger than themselves. Is that what you're doing?" "I don't know, maybe." She wiped dirt off her hands. "Or maybe I'm just tired of being the villain in my own story." Ethan understood that better than she probably realized. The garden took shape slowly. Too slowly for Vanessa's liking. She was used to projects moving at corporate speed. But Ethan kept reminding her that good things took time, and this was a good thing. Maybe the best thing either of them had done in years. By the end of the first month, they had functional garden beds, a small greenhouse, and a stone pathway that wound through the space like a river. It wasn't finished, but it was alive. Maya loved it. She spent every weekend there, running between the beds, talking to the volunteers, making friends with kids from the neighborhood. She'd planted a patch of wildflowers near the back wall and checked on them obsessively, convinced they were going to bloom any day. They need more time, Ethan told her one Saturday. But I've been waiting forever. 3 weeks isn't forever. It feels like forever. Vanessa laughed from where she was kneeling nearby, hands deep in soil. Patience isn't exactly a family trait, huh? Not even close, Ethan said. Maya scowled, but she went back to watering her flowers with the kind of focus only children could muster. Later that afternoon, when the volunteers had gone home and the garden was quiet, Ethan found Vanessa sitting on the stone bench near the center of the space. She was staring at the plants they'd put in, expression unreadable. You okay? He asked, sitting down beside her. Yeah, just thinking. About? My mother. She used to sit here, right on this bench. She'd spend hours out here, just tending to things. I never understood it. I thought it was boring. And now? Now I get it. Vanessa smiled faintly. She wasn't tending to plants. She was tending to herself. This was her way of finding peace. Ethan put his arm around her shoulders. You think she'd be proud of what you're doing? I don't know. Maybe. Vanessa leaned into him. I hope so. They sat there in silence, watching the light shift through the trees. And Ethan realized something he hadn't fully understood until that moment. This wasn't just about the garden. It was about Vanessa learning to let go of her father's legacy, of the version of herself she'd built to survive, of the idea that she had to carry everything alone. And maybe it was about him learning the same thing. The garden opened to the public on a Saturday in early October. Vanessa had fought the idea at first, worried it wasn't ready, but Andrea convinced her otherwise. The space didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be open. They didn't advertise. Just put up a sign at the entrance and let word of mouth do the rest. By noon, over 100 people had shown up. Families, kids, older couples who remembered the garden from decades earlier when Vanessa's mother had been alive. Maya appointed herself the unofficial tour guide, dragging anyone who'd listen over to her wildflower patch, which had finally bloomed. The flowers were scraggly and uneven, but she was so proud that Ethan's chest ached watching her. Vanessa spent most of the day talking to visitors, answering questions, listening to stories about what the garden used to be, what people hoped it would become. She looked exhausted by the end of it, but in a good way, like she'd finally found something worth being tired for. Around 4, when the crowd had thinned, Andrea pulled Ethan aside. She's different, Andrea said. Who? Vanessa? Yeah, lighter. I've worked for her for 3 years and I've never seen her like this. But Bassos, maybe it's the garden. It's not the garden. Andrea looked at him. It's you. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. She's still got a long road ahead, Andrea continued. The company's stabilizing, but it's going to take time, and the board's going to push her hard. They always do. She can handle it. I know, but she doesn't have to handle it alone anymore. Just don't forget that. Andrea walked away before Ethan could respond, leaving him standing there with the weight of her words settling over him. That night, after Maya had fallen asleep on the couch and the mansion was quiet, Vanessa found Ethan in the garden. He was sitting on the stone bench, same spot as before, staring up at the stars. She sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. Thank you, she said. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. You never gave me a reason. I gave you a dozen. You just ignored them. Ethan smiled. Yeah, I guess I did. Vanessa took his hand, laced their fingers together. I've been thinking about something. What's that? Moving out of the penthouse, spending more time here with you, with Maya. Ethan turned to look at her. You serious? I think so. The penthouse never felt like home. It was just a place I went to sleep. She gestured at the garden around them. This feels like home. It's a work in progress. So are we. Ethan laughed. Fair point. They sat there in silence for a while, listening to the wind move through the trees, and Ethan felt something shift inside him, a quiet certainty he hadn't felt in years. I love you, he said. Vanessa looked at him, eyes bright. I love you too. Oh, even though I'm broke and stubborn and have no idea what I'm doing half the time? Especially because of that. What? He kissed her, slow and careful, and when they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. So what happens now? Vanessa asked. Now, we keep going, one day at a time. That simple? That's simple. She rested her head on his shoulder, and they sat there under the stars, holding on to each other and the fragile, imperfect thing they'd built. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Vanessa's company went through a brutal restructuring. 3 more board members resigned. The SEC launched a formal investigation into Webb's activities, and the media circled like sharks, looking for any angle to keep the story alive. Vanessa worked long hours, fielded endless calls, dealt with crises that would have broken most people. But she came home every night, to the mansion, to Ethan, to Maya. And slowly the 3 of them found a rhythm. Maya started calling Vanessa by her first name instead of the mansion lady. Vanessa started showing up to Maya's school events, parent-teacher conferences, science fairs, field trips. Ethan finished the last of the mansion's electrical work and started taking on new clients again, rebuilding the business he'd almost lost. It wasn't perfect. There were fights about money, about boundaries, about how to navigate a relationship that defied every conventional rule. But they worked through it, together. By winter, the garden had become a fixture in the neighborhood. Volunteers came every weekend to help maintain it. Local schools started bringing kids for field trips. Vanessa hired a part-time coordinator to manage programming, workshops, community events, seasonal plantings. It was exactly what she'd wanted, a space that mattered. One evening in December, just before the first snow, Vanessa called Ethan and Maya out to the garden. "I need you to see something," she said. They followed her to the center of the space, where the stone bench sat surrounded by bare trees and dormant flower beds. Someone had installed a small plaque on the bench. Brass, simple, engraved with 3 lines. "In memory of Eleanor Hale, who taught us that gardens grow where love is planted, and that home is the people we choose to let in." Maya read it out loud, sounding out the harder words, then looked up. "Who's Eleanor?" "My mother," Vanessa said quietly. "Was she nice?" "Yeah, she was." Maya considered this. Then she climbed onto the bench, patted the space beside her. "You should sit with us. She'd probably like that." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. She sat down, and Ethan sat on her other side, and the 3 of them stayed there as the sun set and the first snowflakes started to fall. "This is nice," Maya said after a while. "Yeah," Ethan agreed. "It is." Vanessa didn't say anything, just took both their hands and held on. And for the first time in as long as Ethan could remember, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Not because life was perfect. It wasn't. Probably never would be. But because he'd stopped waiting for perfect and started building something real instead. Spring came, and with it, the wildflowers bloomed. Maya's patch had spread, creeping into the neighboring beds, filling the garden with bursts of yellow and purple and white. She was ecstatic, insisted on taking photos to show her class, to show anyone who'd look. Vanessa commissioned a local artist to create a mural on the back wall, a sprawling piece that depicted hands planting seeds, roots growing, flowers blooming. It became an instant landmark. People came just to see it, to take pictures in front of it. The garden was thriving. So was Vanessa's company. The restructuring had worked. Stock prices were climbing again. New investors were coming on board. The board, what was left of it, had rallied behind her. But none of that mattered as much as the quiet moments. Like the Saturday morning when Ethan found Vanessa asleep on the couch, Maya curled up beside her, both of them covered in dirt from a morning spent planting tomatoes. Or the Tuesday evening when Vanessa showed up at Maya's school play, sitting in the back row, cheering louder than anyone when Maya forgot her lines and made up new ones on the spot. Or the late night when Ethan woke to find Vanessa standing in the garden, barefoot in the grass, staring up at the stars. "Can't sleep?" he asked, walking out to join her. "Just thinking. About how different everything is now. A year ago, I was alone in a penthouse, convinced I'd traded everything that mattered for a company I didn't even like." "Be okay?" She looked at him. "And now I'm standing in a garden I built with a man I love and a kid who isn't mine, but feels like she is." Is that a good thing? It's the best thing. Ethan pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "For what it's worth, I think Eleanor would be proud." "Yeah? Yeah." Vanessa was quiet for a moment, then she said, I've been thinking about something else too. What's that? Expanding the garden. There's another acre on the north side we're not using. I was thinking we could build a learning center, a place for kids to come after school, workshops, tutoring, art classes. That's a big project. I know, but I want to do it, and I want you to help. Ethan smiled. You trying to keep me around? Is it working? Depends. Are you paying my rate? She laughed. I'll pay double. Then yeah, I'm in. They stood there in the dark, wrapped around each other, and Ethan realized something he'd been too scared to admit before. This wasn't just about fixing a mansion or building a garden or surviving a scandal. It was about learning to be vulnerable, to trust someone else with the broken parts, to let love in, even when it was messy and complicated and terrifying. Because the truth was, perfection didn't exist. Not in people, not in relationships, not in life. But real things, imperfect, stubborn, hard-fought things, those lasted. And that was enough. A year later, the Learning Center opened. It was smaller than Vanessa had originally envisioned, but it was functional. 2 classrooms, a small library, a communal kitchen. Local teachers volunteered their time. College students came to tutor. Artists taught workshops on weekends. Maya was the first kid to sign up. The opening ceremony was simple. No press, no speeches, just the people who'd helped build it, standing in the garden, watching kids run through the space with the kind of joy that made everything worth it. Ethan stood beside Vanessa, watching Maya chase a group of friends through the flower beds, and felt her hand slip into his. We did it, she said quietly. Yeah, we did. What do we do now? Ethan thought about that, about all the things they'd survived, about the fights they'd had, and the love they'd built, and the life they were still figuring out together. Whatever comes next, he said finally, together. Vanessa smiled, leaned her head against his shoulder. I like the sound of that. And as the sun set over the garden, painting everything in gold, Ethan realized that home was never about the place. It was about the people, the ones who stayed when it got hard, the ones who saw your worst and loved you anyway, the ones who helped you build something beautiful out of the broken pieces. Vanessa had been that for him. He'd been that for her. And together, they'd built something neither of them could have built alone. Not a mansion, not a company, not a perfect life, but a real one. And that was more than enough.